The story of Shioji is very easy to follow. The narrative is linear and straightforward. I'll break down this 100-chapter narrative into 5 sections. The first section does not begin with Xuanzang, but with a monkey who was born from a stone egg. In a general plot summary, the monkey leaps through the waterfall of Flower Fruit Mountain and discovers a haven for monkeys to live in, hence becoming their king. After 300 years of bliss, the Monkey King becomes troubled about the inevitability of death. He then travels to find a way to immortality and learns magical powers from a Taoist master. After he comes back to Flower Fruit Mountain with the name of Song Wukong, he gets rid of a monster that has been terrorizing his home. He then teaches the monkeys how to defend their mountain and journeys to the Dragon King's palace in the North Sea to demand a weapon suitable to his power. The Dragon King files a complaint to heaven, and when Sun Wukong erases all the monkeys' names from the Book of Death, hereby excluding them from the cycle of rebirth, the underworld also files a complaint. Heaven's Jade Emperor, instead of outright punishing Sun Wukong, invites him to the celestial bureaucracy, assigning him the lowest rank job equivalent to a stable boy. Sun Wukong is offended and angry upon discovering his low rank and demands a position that he made up, Great Sage equal to heaven. The Jade Emperor sends generals to battle him and decides to pacify him again, this time appointing him to look after the Peach Garden. But when Sun Wukong gets snubbed again when he is not invited to the Peach Festival, he wreaks havoc in heaven, stealing, eating, and drinking from the festivities, as well as consuming rare peaches, pills, and elixirs of immortality. Wukong battles all the celestial soldiers again, and after they capture him and fail in every possible way to execute him, they finally call upon the Buddha for help, who tricks Wukong and pins him beneath a mountain because he could not be killed or destroyed. 500 years later, we arrive at the second part of the book. The Buddha is unhappy with the morality and wickedness of man, and appoints the Bodhisattva Guan Yin to seek a pilgrim who will bring back scriptures from the West. He sends Guan Yin to the land of the East in search of a virtuous believer who would travel 1,000 mountains and 10,000 waters in quest of the scriptures so that they may be forever implanted in the East to enlighten the people. The Bodhisattva recruits 3 disciples and a dragon to wait for the pilgrim. They would travel with him to seek the scriptures as redemption for their past sins. In Buddhism, samsara is a cycle of rebirth in which the beings of the universe are reincarnated as gods, demigods, humans, animals, ghosts, and hell beings. Samsara is regarded as a realm of suffering. The Buddhist's ultimate goal is to escape from that suffering. Over the course of millions of lifetimes, a person perfects himself, ultimately gaining the power to discover the path out of samsara. In the theory of karma, good or bad actions determine the future modes of an individual's existence. The Buddha based his entire teaching on suffering and the dissatisfying character of human life. The conditions that make an individual are also those that give rise to dissatisfaction and suffering. Existence is painful. Individuality implies limitation. Limitation gives rise to desire, and inevitably, desire causes suffering, since what is desired is transitory. Shioji is a journey in which Xuanzang, whom I'll refer to as Tripitaka to avoid confusion with the real monk, and his 3 disciples go on a quest to obtain Buddhist scriptures in the West. This journey enables them to prove their worthiness and merit, and given the enormous quantity of dangerous ordeals they encounter over a period of 14 years, they discover a path out of samsara within a single lifetime. With the exception of Sun Wukong, however, the other travelers have had many lifetimes of reincarnation. In Tripitaka's previous incarnation, he was the Buddhist disciple, called Master Gold Cicada. His spirit incarnated into the land of the East, and he was chosen as the scripture pilgrim. He's a very effeminate character who usually gets kidnapped every other adventure, which is understandable since he is so infused with purity that it attracts monsters who want to consume his flesh to become immortal. However, he is a celibate vegetarian monk, and his connection to humanity compared to his monstrous disciples, especially in his Buddhist vow to never kill, are redeeming qualities. Still, in my entire life of reading and watching movies, TV shows, etc., Tripitaka is by far the weakest character, compared to the legendary Xuanzang from centuries ago, who calmly meditated as he was about to be sacrificed by pirates. Tripitaka weeps at every sign of trouble. From a conventional Western perspective, Tripitaka is our decoy hero, while Sun Wukong is our real hero, going through most of the action, change, and self-cultivation from the first to final chapter. Tripitaka frees Sun Wukong from underneath the mountain, and the monkey gratefully pledges to travel with his master and teacher. Wukong is now mostly referred to as pilgrim in the text. But Sun Wukong is still a wild card, so Tripitaka keeps him in check with a golden fillet, given to him by Guan Yin. When he recites the tight fillet spell, Wukong gets a terrible headache. When Sun Wukong and Tripitaka reach Eagle Grief Stream, a dragon flies out of the water and swallows their horse whole. Tripitaka, of course, cries, but Wukong battles the dragon and then calls upon the Bodhisattva for help. She explains that the dragon is the son of Ojun, the Dragon King of the Western Ocean. After he accidentally set fire to the palace, his father accused him of subversion, and he was condemned to death. This punishment may seem incredibly harsh, but the Confucian thought of filial piety influenced the Chinese legal system. If the crime had been committed against a parent, the child would be punished more harshly. Fathers had enormous power over their children. This is reflected in the Dragon Prince's sentence because his father personally demanded it. Fortunately, Guan Yin obtained a pardon so that the dragon could serve as Xuanzang's transportation in the form of a horse, because no ordinary horse could make such a journey. They meet the second disciple, Zhu Wuneng, in the next village. Zhu Wuneng was originally a water god of the heavenly river, the marshal of the heavenly reeds. After getting drunk and insulting the moon goddess Chang'e, he was banished to earth in the incarnation of a hog. Zhu translates to pig in Chinese. Although he protects Xuanzang in their travels, he still retains greed and lust. Tripitaka calls him Zhu Ba Jie to remind him of the 8 precepts in Buddhist teaching. They meet Sha Wujing as they are crossing the river of flowing sand. Also called Sha He, he was originally a mortal monk who transcended into an immortal general rank. However, he broke a crystal cup at the Festival of Immortal Peaches, receiving an even worse punishment than the Dragon Prince. This may point to how corrupt or irrational the emperor was, because the cup had belonged to his wife. Sha Wujing consequently received 800 lashes and was banished to earth, changed into a hideous creature. Every 7th day, a sword would come and stab him in the chest more than 100 times. He sinned on earth by eating human beings who came near the river, until Guan Yin finally saved him from this punishment, and he went from being a monstrous deity to the most polite, obedient, and thoughtful disciple, serving as the foil to Wukong and Ba Jie. The third section is repetitive and episodic in its obstacles as the 81 tribulations. Tripitaka would get kidnapped, and his disciples would need to rescue him, or they would need to save a village from being harassed by a demon. Almost all of these were preordained ordeals, however. A monster would turn out to be an animal who eavesdropped on the Bodhisattva's teachings, learned magical powers, and then ran away to wreak havoc on the world. Tripitaka constantly diverts from his quest to pursue minor subplots, ignoring his disciples' advice and restricting their actions to make it difficult for them to do their tasks. He has no skills that let him contribute anything of worth when they get into trouble, even though he's the one who usually causes it. However, he therefore acts as the main obstacle to his 3 disciples, which in effect slows them down to experience all of the 81 tribulations. It is as much of a journey for them as it is for him. The disciples also act as teachers for Tripitaka, teaching him about the yin-yang cultivation through the wax and wane of the moon, or his human sufferings through the Heart Sutra. Wukong reprimands Tripitaka for worrying. Fearing the demons, you are unwilling to risk your life. Desiring vegetarian food, you arouse your tongue. Loving fragrance and sweetness, you provoke your nose. Listening to sounds, you disturb your ears. Looking at things and events, you fix your eyes. You have in a sum assembled all the 6 robbers together. How could you possibly get to the Western Heaven to see Buddha? Simply read and summarized, the majority of Shioji is a long episodic tale of good battling evil. Within the context of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, however, strange, incomprehensible ideas, occurrences, and logic will make sense, with many scholarly interpretations of such. I am aware that this has already been studied as an allegory of Buddhist, Taoist, or Confucian self-cultivation. As a journey to enlightenment, this can be relegated as a manual to cultivation. The travelers encounter this allegory early on when they visit the temple of a Taoist master, who is the guardian of a tree that bears ginseng fruit. This fruit is resistant to the 5 phases or elements, so that it will fall when it meets with gold, wither when it meets with wood, melt when it meets with water, dry up if it meets with fire, and become assimilated if it meets with earth. Ancient Chinese chemistry classified everything in the universe to be composed of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Since our bodies are made of the 5 elements, then we must be limited by the physical law of materials. In cultivation, transcending the 5 elements renders the body to no longer be made up of the elements. A cultivator, in developing high-energy matter through cultivation to replace all the cells in his body, will no longer be made of the 5 elements and therefore no longer made of the matter from this dimension. The time field of our dimension does not restrict his body, which from that point on will stay young and not age. According to legend and Shioji, ginseng fruit is the treasure of immortals, and eating it will make one transcend the 5 elements. The characters are also associated with the 5 elements and alchemical cultivation as part of a whole. Wukong is identified with metal or gold and is frequently referred to as Jingong or Lord of Squire, which is what alchemists call lead, one of the most important ingredients in alchemy. Zhu Wuneng is given the name Wood Mother, Mu Mu, which designates Mercury. Sha Wujing is linked to earth, such as Tu Mu, meaning Earth Mother, or Huang Po, meaning Yellow Hag. The horse of the will and ape of the mind are all dispersed. The metal squire and the wood mother are scattered both. Yellow Hag is wounded from everyone divorced. With reason and right so divided, what can be achieved? When the alchemy of the characters are divided in conflict, the yin and yang of the group is thrown out of harmony, cultivation is not possible, and the journey to enlightenment cannot continue. After 14 years and 81 ordeals, Tripitaka and his disciples finally complete their quest and bring the scriptures back to the east. Emperor Tang Taizong welcomes them, and the pilgrims mount a fragrant wind back to Spirit Mountain, where the Buddha speaks to them. Shioji is an adventure story, a witness to Chinese history and culture, an extended allegory of individuals journeying towards enlightenment. In modern-day China, however, Shioji is known most as an adventure story. It has been adapted into thousands of variations as a form of popular entertainment, and it is especially well-suited for TV given its episodic narrative. In Japan's anime Saiyuki, Sun Wukong is Son Goku, which inspired Goku from Dragon Ball. All characters of Shioji were ugly in the book, but have become far more handsome and are regarded as heroes. Children follow the interesting plot as fantasy, and students in China view it as a book of required reading for high school. In the college entrance exam, several questions regarding Shioji will appear, but only as shallow as to regarding plot points. Students need to read it, but they do not need to analyze it, and they do not see the folk religion, mythology, and value systems that pervade through it. This may be the result of having grown up with these as common knowledge or sense, so that they do not even realize it. Chinese scholar Feng Youlan wrote, "The ancient Chinese culture is an inherent factor determining the Chinese style. America is similarly affected by Christianity and its history of values. Therefore, an understanding of modern China's policies and practices requires understanding it in light of Chinese traditional culture and philosophy." In Shioji, China's 3 major schools of thought coexisted in the story's folk religion world. This was a story for the people of China, from the people of China, from their own folktales, value systems, and beliefs.